So let's get started today just on our back in a supine butterfly. So you'll bring the soles of your feet together, knees can splay out to the side, and then you're welcome to use blocks or pillows, anything that's comfortable, just to hold up your knees if this is feeling a little bit, if this is just feeling a little bit too much for how to start this morning. Okay. So you can just start to close down your eyes. So for this month of October, we're going to do a weekly intention. And I really wanted to start off with, especially for this hips practice, your right to feel. Hips are the epicenter of emotions when we look at energetic anatomy. And so your hip chakra is really your right to feel, your right to tap into kind of that gut instinct, just your right to be exactly as you are in that moment and know that that's okay. And I think as we start to move to some of these colder months and we're faced with more challenges and figuring out how we can show up, it's really easy when asked, how are you doing, to just brush it aside and say, oh, I'm good. And we do this so often. We wear this mask to the world, even in social media, just posting the good stuff. We don't really go into some of the deeper or heavier stuff. And so I think your practice can really be a place to start to connect with what we've been pushing down, because eventually that will bubble up to the surface, and it typically isn't a pretty moment. And so what if we could just avoid those really big explosive moments and just simply give ourselves an outlet to feel? So you can start with your physical body in this shape, just noticing how your hips are feeling this morning, if they're tense or tight. You may start to notice maybe your shoulders, if it feels like they're cranked up towards your ears. Maybe just offer them some space to slide down your back. If you're feeling a little anxious, you can always just rock the back of your head into your mat, taking your chin over to the left and over to the right. Just creating a soothing motion for your body. And then if you haven't already, just start to gather your left hand onto your heart and right hand onto your belly. And can you just feel the really gentle waves of your breath? Apart from any of the other sensations that you've tapped into these last couple of moments, can you feel the steadiness that always underlies each moment of our day and of our practice? The steady undercurrent of inhales and exhales. And it is with our breath that we respond to whatever we're feeling in that moment, to just acknowledge it, to find your breath, and also to just simply allow that energy of the emotion to release. You can think of your body as a tunnel in which something on the outside of the tunnel, your external circumstances, happens, and it starts to move in through the tunnel. And so often we block out that other end of the emotion and we just gather and store all of these emotions. And so today will just be that breaking open of the other end to let emotion release, to let stagnant energy, to let staleness out, almost like a rinsing of the body. Let's take 3 more breaths here on your back. Giant breath in. And just linger a little bit longer in the exhale. Allow your body to soften and relax. Inhale. Inhale. And exhale. Find a little bit more space for yourself. One more giant breath in. And exhale, breath out. Okay. Pick up your knees from out to the side. Just close them together like you're closing a book. Heel toe your feet out wide. And then just drop your knees in towards center. And you might find some movement. You can continue to drop your knees over to the left and the right. But if it just feels good to drop knees down through center, you're welcome to take that as well. Okay. And then the next time that your knees come up through center, pause. Start to walk your knees in towards your chest. Both arms can start to wrap around your shins or even backs of your hamstrings. Might feel nice for the lower back to rock side to side. Feel into the compression in the fronts of your hips. Maybe some of that length into your lumbar spine, your lower back. And then when you come back through center again, place your hands onto the upper part of your shins. And just separate your knees out towards the sides of your rib cage. So modified happy baby. Notice how this shape feels to the inner thighs. A little bit of lengthening. Now, if it's available, you can start to take your peace fingers around your right big toe. As you inhale, start to kick your right heel out to the side, just taking a stretch into the inner line of your right leg. And then as you exhale, you can start to bring your heel back through center. And then take your left peace fingers around your left big toe, and you can start to find this other side. If foot isn't available, just grab a hold of your shin and start to lengthen out the leg. And use your hand to support your leg so that your muscles can be a little bit more relaxed. You're just gonna move side to side a couple of times. You might even roll more towards that right hip as you extend out, and then roll back through center, both of your hips towards the ground. You might roll more to the left side. So there's no right or wrong, just starting to create some space into your inner thighs. Starting to navigate some extension and flexion of the knees. Maybe even feeling some opening into the front of your chest or inner line of your arm. Let's take about one more to each side. Notice how your breath and movement have started to weave together. Come all the way back through to center. Bring your knees in towards one another, and then extend your feet up towards the sky. You can take your fingertips over top of your shoulders, so you're in a waterfall or a dead bug. And just circle out your ankles and wrists, and just notice how this feels even. To pay a little bit more attention to your feet, to your hands. This is the foundation of your practice, so really making sure that we create a strong, solid foundation upon which to build. Okay, switch directions if you haven't already. If there's any other movement that you're craving, you're welcome to begin to find that now. And let's close off this little bit of time on our back with one giant stretch as we activate through the core. So press your belly button down towards the ground. Always optional to bend your knees if you're starting to feel this pulling to your low back. Separate your hands and feet. Start to lower your heels towards the ground. Start to reach your arms overhead. Continue to draw your lower back down towards the earth. Once your heels lowered down, take a big giant inhale stretch. Reach from your fingertips to pointed toes. And exhale, let that go. All right. Roll yourself over towards your right hand side, fetal position. Just notice how those last few moments felt, maybe anything that might have come up, especially at the start of your practice, so that you don't always have to carry these past feelings or emotions or narratives with you. And just give yourself a little bit of space to clear out. Fetal position is really a pose of innocence and new beginnings. So anything old from your week or yesterday or month, to just drop that and begin to step into this new day. Use your left hand to press yourself up and slowly begin to make your way into tabletop, facing the front of the room. Okay. Toes can be tucked or untucked. As you inhale, drop your belly down, rise your gaze and raise your tailbone up. And then as you exhale, press into your hands, curl in around your spine, tuck your chin to your chest. Inhale, breath. Lower your belly, send your heart forward, take your time. And exhale, contract through the front line. Send your chin towards your heart, press into the earth. Let's take 2 more just like that. Really filling up with air as you inhale and releasing any stagnant air as you exhale. Meet into child's pose. Once you come back through to a neutral spine, take your knees wide, big toes to touch, and sit your hips back towards your heels. Walking fingertips forward. Soften your shoulders down your back, especially if you feel like shoulders are hiking up towards your ears. Just allow the muscles around tops and sides of your shoulders to be soft. Allow the muscles to relax their grip. If it feels nice, you can always rock your forehead side to side on your mat. And then slowly start to peel yourself all the way back up through to tabletop. Walk your knees underneath your hips, stacking your bones once again. Spread your fingertips wide. Now, if this feels like a lot on your wrist, you're always welcome to walk your hands one handprint forward and just take some of the flexion out of your wrist. Okay. Extend your right heel back behind you, about hip height. Flex into your right foot so your toes are turning down towards the earth. And then begin to bring your right heel towards the bottom right corner of your mat or even off to the side. Now be really mindful as you come into this shape that your left hip isn't pulling out to the side. You want to keep your left hip engaged, so really squeeze into your glutes. Feel like you're lifting out of the left side of your body. You see if you can lift your heel a little bit higher. Okay. Come all the way back through to center and then cross your right toes towards the left side of your mat. So inner thighs crisscross, lower down onto your forearms. And then start to kick your left hip out to the side. So you're kind of in a modified pigeon variation. You can send your left hip forward or back, maybe even just rocking a little bit to the front and towards the back of your mat. Starting to create some space into your left hip. And then we'll start to change the sensation to the right hip. Walk your fingertips over towards the top left corner of your mat. You can always lower your right knee down if you need a little bit more. You might feel this more into the shoulders or rib cage, and that's totally okay. All right. Walk your hands all the way back through to center. Slide your right toes back behind you and then pick up your heel again. Bend into your right knee. Start to take your right knee out to the side for some hip circles. Again, pulling up into that left hip. So left hip stays above knee. Right knee will slide beside your left, back up, and out to the side. Only taking 3 circles in each direction. So be sure to move slowly through this and really give yourself that space to feel every single muscle fiber that's firing up. Okay, switch directions if you haven't already. Draw your belly button up to your spine if you notice that your core wasn't quite engaged. Press through all 10 fingertips. Okay, and then the next time that your knee comes all the way up through center, pause, extend your heel out back behind you, And then slowly lower your right toes towards the ground. Press into your hands. Slide your left foot all the way up towards the sky, three-legged dog. Bend into your left knee and begin to peel your side body open. Sending your left inner thigh up towards the ceiling. Slide your shoulders away from your ears. As you inhale, pick up your right heel. As you exhale, lower your right heel towards the ground. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, breath, pick up your right heel. Exhale, lower your right heel towards the ground. 1 more time. Inhale, breath, pick up your right heel. Exhale, step your left foot through monkey lunge. Lower your right knee down. Okay. Optional, you can always keep hands on the ground or bring hands onto blocks. Otherwise, you can start to float your fingertips up towards the ceiling. Now, monkey lunge is a really active pose. Often we dump into that front hip and just kind of sit into the joint. So think about pressing through your front foot, shift some weight back. Arms can come up, or you can start to walk your fingertips out to the side and just crack the heart wide open. Maybe even close down the eyes and just allow yourself to feel into the shape. Feel into both the strength and the ease that you can find here. On your next exhale breath, gently release your hands towards the earth. Tuck your back toes to lift your back knee. Walk yourself towards the right side of your mat, turning and pivoting until you come into Skandasana. Start to bend into your back knee. Hips can come all the way down. Front toes can turn up, or you can keep your hips lifted and fingertips to the ground. Okay. Only here for about a breath or so. So maybe you play with starting to stack your shoulders over top of your hips, or you start to take one or even both hands off of your mat. And then gently release your hands back down, shift forward again, bending into your front knee. Turn all 10 toes towards the top of your mat, low runner's lunge, and then continue to turn your toes over to the left side of your mat so you end up into a modified plank. If this feels weird for your left knee, just heel toe your foot more into the middle of your mat. Right hand stays rooted down, left hand reaches all the way up. Start to draw your left fingertips forward. If you feel like you need more support, just release your left hand to the ground. Take a full breath in. As you exhale, lower your right hip towards the ground and take your left fingertips towards the back of your mat. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, breath, draw a giant rainbow arc with your left fingertips, hips lift. Exhale, lower your hips, take your left hand towards the back of your mat. 2 more, inhale, breath, lift up. Exhale, 2 lower. Last one, inhale, reach up. And exhale, 2 lower. On your next inhale, turn towards the front of your mat. Lower your back knee down, and then heel toe your left foot to the outside of your left hand for lizard. Only gonna be here for about 5 full breaths. So let's add in a twist. Right hand stays rooted, or right fist. Take your left hand to your inner thigh and just start to roll to the pinky side edge of that foot. Open up through your left shoulder. Maybe even gaze comes up or back behind you. And then as you exhale, release your left hand down. Step to a yogi squat at the top of your mat. Tuck your back toes to lift your knee, and then spring off of your right foot so that your right foot lands to the outside of your right hand. Okay, hands can come through to heart center. And I always love a little bit of movement here. So you're welcome to just kind of sway side to side. Hands can also come down if you need a little bit more movement, or you can just gently kind of rock into any tightness that you're experiencing in those hips. Let's take 1 more full breath. And then gently release your hands down. Pick up your hips to a fold. Turn and pivot your toes towards the top of your mat. And make sure your feet are at least hip width distance. They can always be a little bit wider. Take a deep bend into your knees. Plant your left hand into the middle of your mat. Inhale, straighten out your right leg, twist open to the right side. So right hand can come to lower back or can always reach up towards the ceiling. Bend deeply into your left knee. And then as you exhale, fold with bent knees, right hand to the ground. Inhale, find the other side. Start to kick out your left hip. Reach up, lengthen. And exhale to fold. Inhale, breath, halfway lift. And exhale to plant your hands, step back to a tabletop. Okay, take a couple of cat-cows. You can always shift your hips side to side. Okay. Just rinsing out your spine. Okay. Now find a flat back, belly button pulls up towards your spine. Press through all 10 fingertips to take some of that weight out of your wrists. Extend your left heel back behind you. Hips are square. Feel like there's a lengthening, crown of your head reaching forward. And then slowly start to travel your left toes out towards maybe the back left corner, or maybe you even take them off to the side. Have a tendency to kick the right hip out here. So feel like you're lifting up all the way from your planted shin towards your hip. Try to keep your right hip stacked over top of your knee. There's a whole lot of effort here, so can you just feel into that for a moment? And use your breath to regulate. Use your breath to just breathe through maybe the challenge of this moment. Slowly, you can start to draw your left heel back behind your hip and then cross your left toes towards the right side of your mat. Okay. Now, you can always lower down onto forearms. I kind of like that to give the wrists a bit of a break. And then you can play with shifting forward or back. You might kick your right hip more out to the side or pull it back behind you. But this should feel like a gentle release from where you just were. And then to get a little bit more into the side body, just start to walk your fingertips towards the top left corner of the mat. Squeeze your inner thighs if you're having some trouble with balance. You can always tent up onto your fingertips, but should now be feeling some length down the left side body. Let your head hang heavy if it's lifted. Walk your fingertips back through center so that they land underneath your shoulders. Slowly draw your left toes back behind you and then pick up your left heel once again. Bend into your left knee and take 3 full circles, drawing your left knee out to the side, forward and back. Kicking your left knee up and out, and forward and back. Take 1 more full circle, feeling really strong through your right hip. Pause at the top and take 3 circles in the other direction. Okay. Once you have finished out that final circle, extend your left heel long and then tuck your toes under. 3-legged dog. Inhale, breath, sweep your right heel high to the sky. Bend into your right knee. This should feel like a gentle release for your right hip. Picking your right knee up just a little bit higher. As you inhale, peel your left heel away from the ground. As you exhale, lower your left heel back down. Let's take 2 more just like that. Inhale, rise up high onto the ball of your foot. Exhale to lower. 1 more time. Inhale, lift up high. Exhale, step your right foot through monkey lunge. Lower your back knee towards the ground. Option to keep your hands rooted, or you can start to rise your hands all the way up, maybe out. Really, you can play with any expression that you just feel like in this pose of the arms. Just making sure that the legs are really, really strong, that they're the foundation holding you in this shape. And then give yourself some space to just feel into this. Whether you love this pose or not, that giving yourself this space to be present is such a gift. It is a gift to be able to feel into both the good and the bad and the ups and the downs, and just allow yourself some room to navigate through. On your next exhale breath, gently release your hands to your mat. Tuck your back toes to lift your back knee. Walk to the left this time, finding Skandasana. Bend into your back knee, so left knee bends, right toes might turn up. Always optional to keep your hips lifted. Notice just how this is feeling for the inner thigh. You're only here for a couple more breaths. So knowing that you don't have to go to that depth, to just be aware of where you've landed, aware of how this feels in case you need to shift at all. If your hands have been lifted, just gently release them back down. Start to walk your fingertips along the edge of your mat, turning and pivoting your toes to the top, and then continue to pivot your toes to the right side for your modified plank. Okay. Right fingertips can reach up and then over. As long as this feels okay for your left wrist, always optional, take your right foot more into the middle of your mat. Full breath in. As you exhale, lower your left hip to hover, right hand reaches back, maybe even gaze follows. Inhale, reach up and over as you lift your hips. And exhale to lower your hip, bring your right hand back. 2 more breaths just like that. Should feel a really big lengthening as you rise up and a softening as you exhale. Last one. Just moving and flowing freely with your breath. The next time that you go to lift your hips up, turn and pivot your toes towards the top of your mat. Lower your back knee down and heel toe your right foot to the outside of your right hand for lizard. Pick up your toes, point them out to about 1 or 2 o'clock. Always optional, use a block for a left forearm, and then bring your right hand to the inside of your right thigh, add in a twist. If it feels okay, you can roll to the pinky side edge of your front foot. Maybe even close down your eyes and just breathe in this experience. Breath by breath, making your way through. Gently, you can start to release your right hand down. Tuck your back toes under to lift your knee and step to yogi squat once more at the top of your mat. Left toe step to the outside of your left hand. Okay. Hands can come all the way through to heart center. Elbows can press into the insides of your knees. And then press your inner thighs back into your elbows to really start to feel into this shape, to start to give you some active lengthening. So if you were to stop pressing with your elbows, it'd almost feel like you collapse in. So you really want to find that strength from pressing out and pressing in. Really beautiful balance between 2 forces. Now soften your shoulders and just take a breath for yourself. Gently release your hands down to your mat, knee into your fold. Hips rise, toes turn to the top of your mat, and bend deeply into both knees. Okay, rinsing this out with 2 twists to each side, left hand roots down. Inhale, straighten out your right leg, twist open to the right. Gaze can always follow. Exhale to fold. Inhale, straighten out your left leg, twist open to the left. And exhale to fold. One more time to each side. Inhale, reach and twist open to the right side. Exhale to fold. One more time to the left. Inhale, lift up. And exhale to fold. Take an inhale breath, halfway lift and lengthen. And exhale to fold. Bend into your knees. Inhale, breath, sweep your arms all the way up. Just take a nice big good morning stretch. And exhale, gather your hands to heart center. Release your palms down beside you, mountain pose. Roll your shoulders once or even twice. Close down your eyes and just give yourself some space to maybe acknowledge any sensations in your hips, shoulders, just acknowledging your body. And know that it's okay to have moments on your mat that you don't love a pose, or you don't love how your body is responding. But can you just acknowledge that you've showed up in this pause? And that showing up and breathing is a major part of this practice. To just allow yourself to be exactly as you are and show up anyways. All right. On your next inhale breath, sweep your fingertips all the way up. Take a big full body stretch. And exhale, forward fold, let that go. Inhale breath to halfway lift and lengthen. And exhale to full plant your hands, step back to a plank. And then just ripple through the spine, downward facing dog. Walk your big toes together to touch. On an inhale breath, rise your right heel high, bend into your right knee, stack into your hip, peel your side body open. As you exhale, step your right foot to the outside of your right hand. And then lower your back knee towards the ground. All right, this one is a little bit different. You can always take a block under your right hand. Pick up your back toes and pivot them over towards the long edge of your mat so that your shin is rooted down, but toes point not to the back, but over to the right. All right, right fingertips stay rooted. Start to take either left hand can come to your hip or reach up. And now press equally with the back of your right arm into your inner thigh, and then also begin to press your inner thigh back into your arm. So you should be feeling a whole lot of strength through your adductors of your front leg. Reach through your fingertips, take one more full breath in. Soften as you exhale. As you inhale, rise your shoulders over your hips. Feel like someone's pulling you up from your left wrist. Straighten out your front leg, and then take your left hand to the ground and peel your right fingertips over towards the back of your mat. So you're back into that modified side plank. Optional, you can start to pick up your right leg to come into a modified half moon. There's always an option to bind, to grab a hold of your right foot as you bend into your knee. So whatever variation this pose, heel lifted, foot down, or in a bind. Just allow yourself to breathe and to be present. Okay. If you do have a hold of your bind, in your next breath, just gently release that grip and extend your foot back down onto your mat. On an inhale breath, now feel like someone's pulling you up from your right wrist. Once again, stack your shoulders over top of your hips. Take your right hand down to the outside edge of your extended leg, and then left fingertips peel over. Okay, gate pose. Notice if you're crunching into this right side body, can you feel like you're lengthening both sides of your body? Rather than trying to find more depth, can you find a little bit more strength? Beautiful. On your next inhale breath, reach both fingertips up to the sky. As you exhale, just slowly start to lower your hands down towards the ground in front of you. So you're almost in a tabletop with one leg extended out. Now pick up your left toes and just point them over a little bit towards the front of your mat, almost like you're in child's pose. And then set your hips back for a half child's pose. Okay, so your left hip will land about over your left heel. Right leg is extended, foot can be planted or toes turned up. Imagine if you were to bend into your right knee, you would land into a full child's pose. Okay. Should feel this a little bit more into the inner thigh. Let's take 2 more breaths. And then slowly make your way onto your seat into your half butterfly. So as you walk your fingertips up and towards your body, you can pick up your hips and just scoop your left knee to the inside of your right thigh. Your right toes point all the way up towards the ceiling. Beautiful. Turn and square your shoulders with the right side of your body. As you inhale, reach your fingertips all the way up. And as you exhale, just start to forward fold, draping your body over top of your thighs. On an inhale breath, start to lengthen out your spine. Feel like you're pulling your heart, maybe even belly slightly away from your leg. And then exhale to fold. Let's take that 2 more times. Inhale breath to lengthen. And exhale to fold. Last time, inhale breath to lengthen. And exhale to fold. Hang out in whatever shape feels nourishing for your body. Really feeling into the sensations of the pose so that you're holding space both for lengthening, but also for peace and calmness. Sometimes when we go too deep, that's where we really start to feel panicky or feel like our muscles tighten up and we're just fighting against the pose. So really trying to avoid that feeling of resisting where we are and just allowing ourselves the space to be where we are and to feel what we feel. Walk your hands all the way back up in towards your body. Plant your left hand beside your hip. As you inhale, meet into your modified plank again. So you can sweep your right fingertips over towards the short edge of your mat. And then turn and pivot yourself to the top of your mat. Step yourself back to a downward facing dog. Okay. You can pedal out your feet, just picking up one heel at a time. And then when you're ready, walk your big toes together to touch. As you inhale, send your left heel high to the sky, bend into your left knee, stack into your hip. And then on your exhale breath, step your left foot to the outside of your left hand. I just realized you're probably facing the back of your mat with the directions I gave you. So if you are facing the back of your mat, don't worry. That's exactly where you're supposed to be. Okay. Send your hips back enough so that they're just about over top of your right knee, and then turn and pivot your right toes to the long edge of your mat. So you kind of have a kickstand with your right leg. Left hand roots down, and then start to peel your right fingertips up towards the sky. Okay, this is meant to be an active lengthening, so press your inner thigh into the back of your arm. Back of your arm presses equally into your inner thigh, just making sure you're not pulling onto the knee joint. Root through that front foot. This should feel like a whole lot of effort, and this is creating both length and strength into the adductors of your front leg. And adductors tend to be a little bit weaker than the other surrounding muscles of the hips, so really, really important to get into them. Okay. On your next inhale breath, start to rise up, shoulders over top of your hips. Straighten out your left leg and take your right hand down towards the ground and reach your left fingertips over towards the short edge of your mat. Optional, you can stay here or you can start to pick up your left heel. If you want to work into a bind, bend into your knee, catch a hold of the top of your foot as you draw your knee back. So really just finding the variation of this pose that serves you. If you do have a hold of your bind, gently release. Start to take your left fingertips up towards the sky. Left foot plants down. As you inhale, rise up using your core muscles, and then start to extend left hand down your left leg, right fingertips reach over. Okay, big stretch through the side body. Make sure that you're also lengthening the left side body as well. Soften your shoulders down your back. On your inhale breath, lift all the way up, both fingertips towards the ceiling, and then exhale, just start to walk your fingertips out in front of you. So instead of having your back toes point to the edge of your mat, now start to just turn your back toes a little bit more towards your left foot, and then sink your right hip onto your heel for a half child's pose. Left leg extends out, right knee is bent. Now my hips are all the way down, but that doesn't mean you have to do it this way. So you can always have hips somewhat lifted. This will get you just a little bit more into the inner thighs. Try as best as you can to allow your bone structure to support you, so you can just soften into your shoulders and back of your head and neck. Take a couple of deep breaths, slowing down. Maybe any racing of your heart or any shortness of your breath. And then slowly start to make your way onto your seat. So it might feel okay to press into your hands, pick up your hips, and then just slowly start to lower down. So the sole of your right foot should line to the inside of your left leg. Turn and square your shoulders with your left leg. And then inhale, breath, reach your fingertips all the way up. And as you exhale, start to hinge and fold forward. And just allow your body to drape. Chin tucks in towards your chest. And then as you inhale, lengthen out your spine. Feel your right hip root to the ground. Reach your collarbones towards your left big toe. And exhale to fold. Let's take 2 more breaths in movement just like that. So this can be as big or as small as you'd like, but finding somewhat of a lift and then letting that go. Take 1 more breath with movement. And then find a gentle place to land for the last few breaths of this fold. If you notice that your attention has been on your mind space lately, can you bring it back into your body? Become aware of the sensations, the lengthening, the compression, maybe any resistance or openness of your body. Walk your fingertips back in towards your hips. Okay. Plant your right hand beside your right hip. Come back into that modified plank. Reach over. Hopefully now you're reaching to the top of your mat. And then gently start to turn yourself to the short edge of your mat. Don't worry if it's the top or the bottom. And then just step yourself back to a downward facing dog. You pedal out your heels a couple of times. Just bringing some space into the backs of your legs. And then slowly lower your knees down onto your mat. Turn to whatever side is most comfortable. Maybe it's the side of the camera or just wherever you have the most room. So you're gonna face the long edge of the mat for everyone's favorite pose, frog. All right, so start to walk your knees out wide and flex your feet, so that your toes will begin to turn in towards your shins. Big toe edge of your foot is on the ground. Now, before you fully come into this, if you know that your knees get sore in this pose, grab a couple of pillows and walk your pillows underneath your knees. I promise you, this is really, really helpful. Okay. You can also take pillows underneath your inner thighs or underneath your belly. And then you'll just land yourself maybe onto forearms or onto hands. And you should feel a lengthening to the inside edges of your hips. Now, if this pulls on your knees and doesn't feel good for your body, instead of being in this variation of frog, you can actually take tadpole, which is similar to your child's pose. So you'll just slowly come back out of that. Take your knees wide, big toes to touch, and instead of bringing your hips onto your heels, lift your hips in line with your knees. So you'll still get that opening, but it might be a little bit more gentle for your knee joint. Okay. Now the reason we're coming into this shape is because frog can actually feel like a whole lot of sensation to hold and a whole lot of emotion sometimes to just kind of move through. So if it feels like emotions are bundling up, can you just start to unwind them and take one sensation at a time, one thought at a time, and use your breath as that steady rhythm. If at any point this feels too deep or you need to come out, you can always sit back to child's pose or just slide forward onto your belly. But we're just gonna be here for about another minute or so. You'll start to notice how tension gathers into other areas of your body, almost as a coping mechanism for what you're experiencing in the hips. So see if you can just soften into your fingertips. Allow your jaw to release. And know that it's okay to feel whatever you are feeling in this pose. And then this becomes a practice of how can you show up for yourself in the best way. Sometimes that means coming out of the pose. Sometimes it means holding a little bit longer. Sometimes it means just unwinding the unnecessary stress and tension. So last couple of breaths to just give yourself to notice, to experience, and to be. Okay. Now some of you might like to come back to child's pose. I actually really just like to take a frog belly flop is what I call it. And you just start to lower your hips forward, sliding out in front of you. And then once you've landed on your belly in this shape, just slowly start to lift your feet up to the sky as you pull your knees towards one another. Stay on your belly and then just gently drop your feet like windshield wipers over to the left and over to the right. This should feel like a gentle release for your hips. And a reminder that everything you were just holding and going through is already starting to fade. So allow the emotions and the attachments of that last pose to also fade, just as the physical sensations are in your body. Okay. The next time that your knees come up through center, or feet come up through center, gently release the tops of your feet down. And then just ever so simply roll yourself onto your back. Okay. Try to use as little movement as possible. And bring your knees in towards your chest. Once you've found your way onto your back, to give yourself a gentle hug. Create some space into your lower back, especially if your lower back was feeling a little tight in frog. And then you release the soles of your feet down. Okay, really simple pose, but really necessary after frog. Heel toe your feet towards the outside edges of your mat and just allow your knees to drop in towards one another. Okay. If this feels too much for your knees, just take your feet closer towards one another. Otherwise, you can always pick up your toes, turn your toes slightly in. If you notice with your hands underneath your lower back, there's a really big gap, press your belly button down in towards your spine, and this will actually bring you into a bit more internal rotation. Like you're squishing that gap of air underneath your lower back. Hands can stay over top of your belly or down beside you. There's not a whole lot of effort in this pose, so just allow yourself to almost sink in, enjoying the space that we've given ourselves after that pretty deep hip opener. And slowly separate your knees away from one another. If your toes are pointed in, just bring your feet parallel, so toes point towards the edge of your mat, but keep your feet out wide. Coming into an internally rotated twist, slowly start to lower your knees over to the left. So you're gonna have some space between your thighs and your knees and your ankles. Now, if this feels like it pulls onto your right inner knee, you can always slide your right knee closer towards your left, just sliding the foot as well. Or you can take a prop underneath that knee, like a block or a pillow to hold it up. If you want a deeper internal rotation and there's no pulling on the knees, you're always welcome to cross left ankle over top of your right thigh. Just making sure that also doesn't pull into your lower back. Both shoulders stay rooted. And just gently allowing gravity to bring you down into this shape. You feel the rise and fall of your breath that has never left your side as you move through this. Then if you do have your left ankle crossed, you can just gently release the grip of that foot. As you inhale, lift up through center. And then as you exhale, just lower your knees all the way over to the other side. So still finding that internal rotation, this time of your left hip, allowing your left femur to begin to rotate inwards, your left upper thigh bone. Always optional to cross your right ankle over top of your left thigh, or just allow your knees to splay out to the side. Notice how different this moment is from where you were just a few minutes ago, and actually how fast the body can rebound from being in stress to being in relaxation and stillness. And really, it's often just a matter of consciously breathing, consciously reminding ourselves that it's okay to just be wherever we are. And to just give a little bit of space to go through this experience that we call life. I wish I could say that the most uncomfortable moment in my life was being in a frog pose, but ultimately there are so many other moments that come up, so many ups and downs. And so as we just learn to navigate that on our mat, it becomes a little bit easier as we travel off of the mat. On your next inhale breath, you can slowly start to lift your knees up through center. Pick your hips up and into the center of your mat. If there's final movements, just like washing your knees side to side or bringing your knees into your chest for one final squeeze, you're welcome to take that. And then we'll slowly make our way into Shavasana. The soles of your feet lower down, legs can extend out, palms face up beside you. If you are feeling this a lot in your lower back, you're always welcome to plant your feet or even scoop pillows or a bolster underneath your knees. Okay. There's no rush to come into Shavasana. If you do need a little bit more time or some extra movement, just take whatever is nourishing for your body. Okay. And then you can just start to land yourself in stillness at your own pace, just following your own yoga journey today. Once you've landed down in Shavasana, give yourself the room to take a giant breath in and then to just let that all go. We tend as humans to either linger in the past or to move towards the future. And lingering in the past is this holding on to old emotions that we've stored in our body. The moments when people have said things that are hurtful and we start to take on that tension. Maybe even moments where we felt like we didn't have room to breathe, or we were so busy or overwhelmed. And we forgot to just give ourselves some space to release after that moment has passed. Some of us will move more towards the future and will almost store like a chipmunk or like a bear hibernating for the winter. We'll store up that borrowed stress for the future. It's like we're borrowing fear for what we're uncertain of or what we're waiting for. And so I encourage you as you lay here to just let all of that release. Whatever you know has been playing on your mind, whatever has felt heavy in your body, to just give yourself a moment to feel it, to acknowledge it, and then to know that emotion is just energy. It's a stimulation from the environment that we respond to in an energetic way, and that we just have to simply release. And so this practice of your right to feel is also your right to let go. So to feel the anger, the frustration, the fear, the grief, and then to just slowly unwind its grip on you, and to recognize that you are not this emotion. You are not this one moment or these words, that this is just energy moving through your body. And that energy is often telling you something about how you feel about an external circumstance, but it's not something that you have to carry. So I'll leave you here for a few moments, and anytime you just notice something coming up, don't try to push it back down. Allow it to blossom, to just feel into all of the corners of that thought or emotion, so that it no longer needs to be felt and it can just simply release. I'll bring you out of this when we're ready to close off together, so you don't have to worry about time. If you need longer in Shavasana, you are so welcome to take it. Otherwise, if you're moving into the rest of your day, just slowly start to wiggle into fingertips and toes. Wake up your body in a way that feels really good, like an invitation into your day, whether this is the morning practice for you or later. You always have that invite to restart. And then you can eventually use these nice few breaths to just come to seated and bring your hands through to heart center. Humble your chin to your chest in gratitude for just showing up. And remember, as you move through your day, you don't have to pack everything inside. Allow yourself to experience what you experience, to notice it, to acknowledge yourself, and then also to give yourself that gift to let go. You don't have to hold the weight of this energy or this emotion, that you just simply set it free. So much love from the bottom of my heart. Namaste. Have a beautiful rest of your day.